In our news bulletin for this evening, Finyone Hakupuatua celebrated 50th Jubilee that showcased massive community support and a proud day for the village. The Awasele Winch project is nearly completed and that will give fishermen an alternative option. The new school year started this week with a slight delay, but assurances from the Education Department indicate that students' learning will not be affected. The shooting season ends with one firearm-related incident last week. Finyone Hakupuatua turned out in numbers on Saturday to celebrate the 50th Jubilee since the establishment of the church in the village. Hakupuatua prides itself on the grounds upon which the village was named, closely tied to its Christian faith and values. This was a rather significant event that drew support from not only the community on the island, but even as far as Australia and New Zealand. Village Elder and MP Honourable Young Vivian reflected on the journey and history of Christianity within the village and recalled the sacrifices made by their ancestors of the village to build the church in 1965. Reverend Ingamokole said that this was a realization of a dream to upgrade the church and uplift community spirit. He reiterated the importance for the upcoming generations to value their heritage and continue this lasting legacy and strengthen their spiritual ties to the village. The traditional Ngalue Fafau was also a sight to behold, with a fence-like structure built around the field in front of the church, set up especially to display the richness of food crops and various contributions. More than half of the structure was covered with taros, and even more raw food was stacked in piles upon piles of pigs, fish, boxes of chicken and corned beef. The formalities took up most of the morning, starting with the flag-raising ceremony and singing of the Niue and Hakupu anthems. This was followed by the unveiling of plaques outside of the church that were put up especially to acknowledge pastors who had served within the village in the past, members of the community who went on to serve as missionaries in other villages. Mr. Viviani says that this is also one way of documenting village history that will be realized by generations yet to come. The church service, led by village pastor Reverend Ingamokole, was a joyful occasion of spiritual enlightenment that lasted for about an hour before continuing on to the feast and speeches. People packed the various tents in front of the pastor's house where tables had been set up to cook food that had been prepared for those invited. There was more than enough to go around, but it did look like the whole of Niue was invited. Speeches from different guest speakers highlighted the church history, the work that went into building the church in its current location back in 1965, making mention of the carpenters and also builders. The entertainment was one large and continuous display of song and dance that truly reflected the community spirit and pride. The day ended with the distribution of the Ngalue at the village green. On the day it was announced that funds raised amounted to approximately $140,000, but that was not including further funds received from the Sunday service. Hakupu will be concluding the events with a farewell to be held tomorrow. Developments at the Awasele ramp are progressing well, with work to put up and install the new winch this week. At the end of last year, extensive work was done to get power down to the ramp first, before taking a brief break over the festive period. The new winch will be electric powered. That should be a lot easier to operate. Although it is located in Awasele, the winch will benefit fishermen on the island, who will have an alternative location to launch off their boats to venture out on their fishing expeditions. Director of DAF, Brendan Pasisi, says that they will be running a short training session with local fishermen who will be using this piece of equipment to ensure the proper use and safety. The previous winch was manually operated and had become dilapidated after more than 20 years in use. Often with such equipment, maintenance is also an issue, especially due to location and exposure to the elements. But Brendan says in the case of any pending disasters or cyclones or high seas or rough seas, the winch is designed in a way that it can be removed as fast as possible. According to Mr. Pasisi, if all goes according to plan, the anticipated official launch is likely to be done by the end of this week. Students are back at school after a lengthy school break and most ready for the chance to achieve more this year. The Education Department held a whole week of activities in preparation for the school year, only to be slightly delayed by a week as part of health precautionary measures. However, they have given assurances that this will not affect students' learning because the school holidays for Term 1 will only be for 1 week. This year's school rolls look quite promising, with a tentative school roll of 407 in this first week. At ECE and Niue Primary School, the school roll is 227 and Niue High School with 180. But the Education Department indicates that these figures could increase with anticipated enrollments received. Staff movements from last year also means that there are some new staff members coming on board this term. There are transfers and some returning teachers. At ECE, there is 1 new teacher, and Niue Primary School have 3 teachers on contract and staff promotions for 3 teachers or teacher aides. As for Niue High School, they have welcomed their new principal, Charles Ioane, who was the former head of department for the maths department. There have also been a few appointments made by the Public Service Commission to complete staff requirements for this school year. There will be a new teacher for Year 8, 2 teachers on a 1-year contract at Niue High School, a new HOD for maths, a new biology teacher. There is also a returning FNCT teacher, a PE teacher, 1 new staff at the head office, and 1 staff taken on board as an assistant librarian and assistant for FNCT. Results for the National Certificate of Educational Achievement has also been received, but have yet to be sent through to Cabinet for endorsement before they're made official. The official shooting season for pigeons and bats has closed with the last sale of ammunition on the 30th of January. Each year the shooting season is open for about a month or 2, dependent on an approved prescribed time set out by Cabinet and also monitored by the Niue Police. Ammunition sales and registration of firearm licenses are also managed by the Niue Police Department, who say it has been generally quiet. However, there are reports of a firearm-related incident that occurred last week involving a man who was allegedly injured while using a shotgun. This individual did present to the hospital with an injury, but Niue Full Hospital officials could not confirm the severity of his injuries other than to confirm that they were aware he had left the island at his own cost on Saturday's flight. Niue Police continued to remind firearm owners to use their common sense and caution when handling firearms to avoid any unnecessary accidents. And those are our news stories that we have for you this evening.